Busted, rusted, set adrift, cloaked in cloth and grime. This old ship lies still, a relic from a different time. Lift the dust sheets, one by one, pry the broken latch. Up the ladder, flaking paint, up towards the hatch. Crank it open, hit the switch, dim lights flicker on. Yellow bulkheads and fraying wires, captains, dead and gone. In the cockpit, fire it up, engines thrumming roar, creaking, lurching up towards shining stars once more.
Hello, friends. It's me, Darcy. I use they, she pronouns. I'm one of the co-founders here at EUphoria, and I am delighted to welcome you in to the summer of sci-fi. It's finally here. It's underway. We hope you've been enjoying everything that's been going on so far. If you haven't, you can catch the VODs. Lucky you. We've got plenty more to come. And I'm here to kick off a series of solo APs. Between the incredible Fiona and myself, we are going to be showcasing four solo sci-fi games made by UK and EU designers. You wouldn't think there would be that many out there. We had to turn some down. It was amazing. Amazing problem to have. I'm here to play Bucket of Bolts today. It is published by Mousehole Press, who you might know from their most recent release, Corico, A Magical Year. They are also responsible for a Belonging Outside of Belonging game set in a space station. It's called Orbital. I'm rather fond of it. And they also did another solo game called Artifact, upon which this game is based. So I'm going to be telling the story not of a community or an individual, but of a spaceship. From its creation, its maiden voyage, we're going to create its journey through the galaxies over months, years, maybe even centuries. Crews and captains will come and go, and modifications may be added, damage may be taken, battles may be won and fought and lost. But there will be something at the core of this vessel that will endure. So, buckle up. Get ready. When we come back, we'll begin. To play Bucket of Bolts, the first thing we need is a ship, but we'll get there. We will create a ship, we will create a captain, we will talk about their crew, we will talk about the purpose of this ship, why it has been built, and how it fulfills that duty. Then we will find out if things go well or go poorly for this captain and his ship, and what becomes of their relationship, how their time together comes to an end. Then we're going to take a rest, and the ship is going to lay dormant. But after some time, a new captain will find, acquire, buy, discover our ship, and take it on a new adventure. We're going to go through 3 captains. Standard rules say 3. Let's see how we go. And then we're going to take a last moment to think about how our ship will be remembered. So, our ship. One of the wonderful things about buying this game on itch.io, which is where I purchased it, you get a lot. It is a $10 game, which for a solo game is probably on the high side of what most people might pay, but you get a lot for your $10. You get a soundtrack. so that when we have our rests, we will have atmospheric music to time our rest and to give us something to think about, to focus on. You also get this wonderful thing, which is the Bucket of Bolts Ship Creator. It is a whole program that has been designed for this purpose and this purpose alone, and I love the retro style very, very much. It's super simple. All we do is click, generate ship. There is the Phoenix's Question with Captain Opold Etch and the crew Draz, Willis, and Death. We can click that as many times and we can come up with as many ships as we want. I'm going to trip up on saying Phoenix's Question if I retain that ship, and I don't want to deal with that for the next 2 hours. So I'm going to click it a few times. What I'm going to do is I'm going to roll, let's say, a d6. My most steampunky, spaceshipy d6, which I believe is this one. I think that's a d6. Oh, that's a d8. This is a d6. And I'm just going to click generate ship that many times because I hate making decisions as a bisexual ADHD person. So I'm going to let the fates do them for me. We're going to click 6 times. We'll go kind of slow. We'll look at what we could have won. We'll look at the alternates. We could have had, oh, that's cool. I want that one. The TKR Wing Star. It rhymes. How can you not want that? Captain Radga Canton and crew Washburn, 2-person crew. I like that. I'm going to screenshot that, and I reserve the right to come back to it if I don't like ship number 6. 2. That's really cool. I'm going to screenshot them all. I can tell that I'm actually not making this decision easier for myself, I'm making it harder. It is what it is. 3. We can move past that one. 4. I really like that. 5. Pretty cool. This is what we should. Fats Grace. That is incredible. With crew Duck and Taka serving under Captain SN7KR, which I'm going to choose this ship, I'm going to go with it, and we will be referring to the captain as Sneaker. Come along with me on this journey of just abusing the English language however we see fit. So, Fats Grace with Captain Sneaker. I'm going to say First Officer Duck, because that's fun to say. And Crew Woman Taka. So, we'll screenshot that. And what it asks you to do is to make a quick sketch. I am not an artist by any means, but I am going to show willing. I'm going to buy into the intention of the game. I'm going to make a sketch. Maybe no one will ever see it and it won't see the light of day. Maybe I'll share it with you guys. We'll see. So I'm going to take a minute to do that. Alright, we have our ship, Fats Grace. And what we know about it so far is that the ship is a medium-sized freighter, possibly designed to haul freight or escort galactic nobility through blockades or destroy a space station, perhaps. Can't imagine what that's referencing. That's all we're given. It's rugged, it's adaptable, it can do a lot of jobs, fill a lot of roles. It's up to us to discover a little bit more about that. So we do the ship creation section. Ship creation. You were constructed by a team of starship engineers. Me. I am the ship now. As we play this game, the ship is my character. I have to perceive everything that happens through its own lens, through its senses, through its awareness of what happens within it and without. So, when the game says you, it's me. The ship. You were constructed by a team of starship engineers. Describe them, their principles, and political affiliations. Oh, those are huge questions. Starting off strong. Okay. Describe the engineers who made the ship. It's put ideas of intergalactic war in my head already, so let's tease that seed out. There's always an intergalactic war in space. It seems there is never peace. So let's say that these engineers A corporation engineers. War is big business, and it requires corporations to churn out armaments, munitions, equipment, vehicles. So let's say that Fats Grace is a nickname given to it by its crew when they acquire it, but when it rolls off the production line, it's just Freighter 59X-3 brackets lowercase b. It was designed by people who designed for utility, designed for cost effectiveness, designed for fast production. It's a medium freighter. Let's say it's a small troop transport, not a platoon transport, but a specialized transport for small groups, specialized groups. Like imagine like a tactical team, a small, highly trained, cutting-edge team dropped into a particular place to do a particular job. So it's got reasonable living accommodations. Being corporation designers, there's not a lot to distinguish them between one another. They don't have any lofty goals. They don't have any personality traits that they're attempting to... they're not trying to make a big statement with this design. It's for a simple purpose, and it has to do that purpose quickly, efficiently, and as cheaply as is safe. I think this war has been raging for some time, and perhaps the exact reasons for its outbreak are lost or blurred or politically manipulated by... Let's say there are several sides involved in this war. It's not a cut and dry one side versus another. Maybe it started that way, but several other civilizations and settlements have been dragged into the conflict, either through political machinations or resource scarcity. This corporation, let's name them. I'm terrible at naming things. The debate of whether to say some of the things that are popping out in my head, say them out loud for blooper content, but no. Let's call them the Pendragon Corporation. An old and storied house made good on the intergalactic stock market, born of innovation and a passion for spaceflight, but in that way that happens with small family-run companies. Buyouts and acquisitions have happened and have been shuffled into a larger conglomerate. I've made myself sad about this corporation now. Yes, so that is who designed it. Then we add 3 traits to express the stock model properties of this ship, the things that it has been designed to do. Let's find the traits. Are there traits, or do we just make them up? Okay, it looks like traits are just for us to decide. So, let's make our ship agile, to move fast, to evade weapons fire, and to evade capture. If this is designed to get groups of people where they need to go, it needs to be able to avoid and outrun obstacles. So let's call it agile. Then we'll call it, we can add mechanical systems, we can talk about battle scars, modifications, facets of an increasingly willful personality core, or just the way the craft feels to fly. I think a cookie cutter design ship just fresh off the production line, obviously it wouldn't have any battle scars and it wouldn't have any modifications yet. I also feel like if you've ever driven a relatively new car, it can take a while for them to settle in, to get used to being a composite of parts, for everything to meet one another and gel and settle and start working together in a rhythm. So I'm going to say that the way it feels to fly, we'll give it a trait called hard work. It is an agile craft, but you have to, as the pilot, push to get there. There are a lot of systems. Sometimes the engine might take a while to boot up. The hyperdrive needs a lot of revving before it's ready to jump. It takes effort to make this thing work. So it is agile. It is hard work. Let's give it, I feel like that's a positive-ish and a negative. Let's give it something that it wasn't necessarily designed to do, but something that the crew find that they enjoy about it once they get on board. It's a medium-sized freighter. It's designed to carry, let's say, a unit of 6 to 12 troops, plus the crew who staff it and drive it. Pilot it. On a ship like that, I think it would be unique and a welcome surprise for a group of people like that to find that they have privacy. By which I mean that it is a large ship, but it is divided into lots of reasonable to small sized rooms. It is not all vast and, just expanses of metal echoing and clanging. They have their private rooms, yes, but there are also smaller canteens, living spaces that they can share games and quiet time and drinks with maybe just 2 or 3 of them in one space that they can make personal, that they can have time apart in. There's a war going on and these people are risking a lot to do their jobs. I think they would make the best of what they could to have creature comforts. And it's a pleasant surprise that they can quite easily find that aboard this ship. So its trait to reflect that would be, I'm going to go with homey. That's kind of cringe and kind of twee, but what I am enjoying, I can already see how this is going to work as the game unfolds. That this is what they are now, and this is what I intend these traits to mean, but they can have different meanings. For it to be homey to these troops, it might have other meanings in the future. So I like the open-endedness of that. We're going to go with that. We've drawn our ship, and from now on, we perceive the world through its cold mechanical senses. We are the Fats Grace. The Fats Grace? Just Fats Grace? We'll see. So we have lots of ship questions that we'll answer to give us more of a rounded idea of, I want to say, who this ship is, because it's going to have a personality. It's not going to be a thing. It's going to be a character, a person. But we'll get to those. So, that is who we are. We have rolled off the production line. We have a purpose intended for us. Let's find out who is the first person to own us and who is our first captain. This is Act 1, the High Era. And we are given a choice of captains here. The long-distance hauler, the renowned mercenary, an intelligence agent, or a galactic senator. We are also given personality traits for them, and then we have some questions to answer about them. So I think we've already sort of given an idea for ourselves of who might own it. We could adapt some of the less obvious ones, but let's start simple. Let's go with an intelligence agent. Because I feel like we've established that this is more than just... If I were to go with a renowned mercenary, I might be more inclined to make our troop carrier a home for more run-of-the-mill soldiers. But we've established that this is home to specialists. So I think an intelligence agent would be better placed to deploy those specialists. Our intelligence agent is ruthless, loyal, and is operating undercover. Oh, that has already opened up so many possibilities. That is a great, great start. We need to describe their cover identity and their employer's shady agenda. I have chosen correctly. I'm very excited for this. Where on board did they seal away their most explosive secret? Okay, this game just entered a different level. This is very exciting. So, we're going to get to those. I've jumped ahead, but I've got myself excited about it. So this process is known as resolving a captain. This is describing who they are, what they do with the ship, and ultimately what happens to them, why they part from the ship. So we will describe our intelligence agent first. We will name them and come up with some striking details. Let us say that this is Captain, as has already been established by our random generator. We're looking at Captain Sneaker. Oh, this is perfect. I forgot that that was the captain's name before I made them a sneaky intelligent agent. I'm just that good. Captain Sneaker. SN7. SN7KR. Captain Sneaker. Captain Sneaker has an alphanumerical designation because Captain Sneaker is a synthetic humanoid. They are a robotic, highly trained. They've been programmed to be the best possible intelligence agent they can be, but they appear completely human. We're talking alien level of synthetics. We're talking Blade Runner level of completely indistinguishable from humans at a superficial level. But Captain Sneaker is the designation, but when they take control of the ship, they go by the name Captain... Captain... Again, intrusive thoughts. Don't say them out loud. People will know that you are batshit. Let's do what I always do. Let's look at my books and see if anything sparks something interesting. Going to be the most unassuming, forgettable-faced, medium build, medium height, brown hair, brown eyes, slightly androgynous, but male-presenting Captain. Okay, let's go with Captain Del Rio. Sort of middle-aged, hard to place exactly their age. Superficially affable, but doesn't get too involved in the lives of their crew because they're trying to be a sneaky spy. One striking detail about them, about their public persona, They claim to have attended a training school on a planet which no longer exists, which is normally an excellent cover story because, shockingly, there are no details. That planet was a victim of this intergalactic war. But unfortunately for them, let's say that one of the members of this crew also happens to be from that planet. And it isn't until they all board for the first time as a recruited team that Sneaker discovers that they're in trouble. Their cover story might get blown here. They've made a bluff and they've encountered one of the only people who could possibly poke holes in that bluff. And as they begin working together, as their working relationship goes on, maybe there's some suspicions arise. I might be getting ahead of myself, but there are conversations that happen and say, oh, remember that bar in that city? It was one of the finest. Isn't it a shame that we can't go and have their specialty drink one more time? And Captain Del Rio has to, oh no, I don't think I ever went there. Oh, you must have been there. It was one of the most popular places. No, I don't really drink that much. And every lie that they spin is now a lie that they must remember and keep to, and another restriction on how they can behave. How did they take command of the ship? They were assigned it. Their handler, who we will talk about when we get to their prompt questions, pulled the strings and got them placed on this particular vessel. This particular vessel, because of the crew that was about to be assigned to it, the specialist group, the tactical troops, there is a mission that they are going to go on that this particular handler once swayed one way or another. We'll think about that when we get to the prompts. Then we have to think about notable crew or valuable assets. Well, our crew, we've established we have a 2-person crew. We have First Officer Duck, and we have crew person Taka. Crew person is an all-round jack-of-all-trades, teamster sort of. I'm not in charge, I'm not leadership, I take orders, but if there's a problem, I'm probably going to go and fix it. With only a 2-person crew and 1 captain, you have to pull your weight. Everybody's going to have to pitch in with everything, but that Taka is... I'm picturing quite a youngish, maybe sort of the sort of person who's lied about their age to enlist, to get a job, and has this like childish energy. They're a young adult, but they've been quite sheltered. They haven't had to mature, and there's an energy, there's a bluster and a smiliness that is probably unique amongst this crew of presumably hard, battle-scarred, weary, bitter, long-serving soldiers, and then there's just this red-cheeked, wide-grinned, I'm picturing a mop of curly, ragged, unkempt hair, a toothy grin, and yeah, just a willingness to get things done. I'm just happy to be here energy. Meanwhile, First Officer Taka is a long-serving crew member on other ships and thought that they were going to get the command post here. Unfortunately for them, our sneaker got there first. And there's maybe some resentment there, maybe a willingness to suck up to the captain and prove that I really am ready for this, whoever's watching. And so they take their job very seriously, maybe a little too seriously. So we've got vastly different ends of the emotional spectrum happening on board this ship. There's Taka, who is very, very serious. There is, Duck, who is Duck is very serious. Taka, who is a roguish, boyish charm character. And then in the middle is our Captain Del Rio. So, our two captains' prompts. Describe their cover identity. Oh, we've got ahead of ourselves. We've already done that. Never mind. Their employer's shady agenda. We have, we've alluded to this, but let's nail it down. This particular tactical crew. What is their specialty? What are they trained to do? Underwater infiltration. Why not? There is a particular settlement, a particular planet, an ocean planet, which has switched sides in the war. It was one of those sort of tertiary figures that was dragged into the war on one side because of more, not even political reasons, but more fiscal reasons, trade agreements, things of that nature. And then the other side came along and made them a better offer, and they switched sides. So this team, their ultimate goal is going to be arrive at the planet, infiltrate an underwater store, a large series of warehouses. What does it store? What is the most precious resource on board this planet? I don't even think it's something relevant to the war effort. I think it is not even a necessity, but one of those luxury items that people throughout the galaxy have come to rely on, like coffee. We don't need coffee. Some of us need coffee, but it is a luxury item. But if we were all suddenly made to do without our caffeine in the morning, I think society would crumble. I'm not overstating that. Society would crumble. So something like that. There is a seaweed that grows on this planet that has medicinal properties, but is often used in cooking. It is one of those garnishes, one of those seasonings that is almost a requirement, like salt and pepper. It has to be prepared the right way, but it grows all over this planet. This team, this crack team of military operatives is going to ruin a salt warehouse. They're going to sabotage this series of warehouses. It's not just that one product that is there. There will be several. But that is the one that they are targeting. That is one that will undermine the opposition forces and culture in a baseline level, a foundational way. The handler, I think, is also one of those people who has fingers in a lot of pies and stands to manipulate some stock markets or something with this, to short some shares or buy and sell right before a crash in the seaweed culinary necessity market, and make a lot of money for themselves. They're not actually invested in either side of this war. They're just out for themselves, and willing to do whatever it takes just to sow a little chaos and make some money along the way. After that mission, who knows? Maybe they will try something new, maybe they will manipulate more assignments, or maybe they'll just get Sneaker out of there. We'll find out, I think. Moving right along, our second question for the intelligence agent. Where on board did they seal away their most explosive secret? I think without overcomplicating, their most explosive secret is not only their links to this handler and their double-dealing nature, but their nature as a android, as a synth. Where would you seal that in your physical space? In their captain's quarters, obviously they don't require sleep, they don't require rest, but they must require maintenance of some kind or fuel of some kind. And so were anybody to poke around, again, there are covers there are hidden compartments, but were anybody to spend a great deal of time rummaging around the captain's quarters, they would almost certainly find tools and I don't want to say instruction manuals, but data that has been collected and stored, and a way to contact their handler, who I realize that we haven't yet named. I'm going to say that they only have a call sign by which Sneaker knows them, and they are Boxer. There is a communications device or a way of sending messages to Boxer that is hidden under their desk. It is untraceable. That in itself, I think, is very unique, very important technology. It can send untraceable messages. And that is going to be there inside that ship for as long as it exists, whether Sneaker is around or not. So next, excitingly, we get to roll on tables. Who doesn't love to roll on a table? We are going to discover a prominent event that happens in the period of time that Captain SN7KR is in charge of Fat's Grace. We've got a choice. We can go with love and triumph for outcomes in a positive vein, or we can go for scum and villainy, crooked schemes, misplaced loyalties, and blundering mistakes. Guess which one we're going for. Choose one of the prompts below, answer its questions, and then change something as you become infamous, unreliable, or illicit. We've got 6 options. Your boy's gonna roll a d6, because that's how we do. That's how we roll. 2. Ooh, okay. Out of fuel and out of funds, your captain was forced to land at the nearest space station. Describe the port, why they would never have willingly stopped there. What risky or demeaning task were they demanded to perform to get restocked? These prompts are excellent. I love multi-question prompts that move the story forward in interesting ways. I love that. So, out of fuel and funds, that's a dire situation for Captain Del Rio to find himself in. How would that have come about? There was a conflict, there was a skirmish happening. They were on their way to this ocean planet, and they got caught up in an ambush. It wasn't meant for them because nobody knew they were there, but they happened to be traveling through a system where active conflict had not been happening until suddenly it was. They took damage. I think we can safely say that they took damage to their fuel tank. That's how they ran out of fuel. The captain of the ship would not allow such poor planning to happen, so it must have been an accident, and it was a casualty of war. They ran out of fuel, they were running light, they didn't have money. The nearest space station was aligned to a group which also maintains neutrality in the war, but in a very different way to Sneaker and Boxer. Sneaker and Boxer are there to not even be seen, let alone be seen choosing sides. This group defies the war and refuses to choose sides and takes in refugees and has food stores and fuel stores and supply stores that they distribute to people who have been affected by the war. The reason Sneaker would never ever willingly go there is because it is owned and run in part by the person who created him, them. Or rather, not them specifically, but their model, their type. And if they were to encounter that person on this relatively small space station, they would probably be clocked. Not necessarily as Sneaker posing as Captain Del Rio, but as a robot, as somebody who is not who they say they were, and certainly should not be piloting a ship. So when they arrive, Sneaker directs probably Taka to go aboard, actually leave Fats Grace, go aboard and try and find the supplies that they need and do the repairs that they need. What risky or demeaning task were they demanded to perform to get restocked? Nobody wanted to deal with Taka. Taka's basically just a kid, and did not present themselves in a way becoming somebody who's here basically to ask for a favor. There was a bit of cheekiness, there was a bit of well-intentioned but poorly received buffoonery, and the risky task is that eventually Sneaker had to leave the ship. They had to go and deal with this directly. They were sending messages to Boxer, but short of intervening in a really overt way, there's nothing Boxer could do. Sneaker had to get out of this on their own. That leads us neatly on to our ship questions. We have a series of questions that we're going to answer. We don't have to answer all of them, but there's a nice choice. I've had a quick look at them. This is what represents things that change the story that is told of our ship throughout the galaxy as it creates its legend. The one I'm going to answer here is: your customized systems allow for a unique maneuver that many of your captains have attempted. What is it, and what does it come to be called by tale tellers and imitators? This maneuver was invented here and now during this event by Sneaker. Sneaker had to leave the cockpit, had to leave the ship, go aboard this space station and parley with the powers that be. And we've established that this is a place where stores and equipment and time and effort is fairly freely given, but to those who require it most, those who wouldn't be able to get it elsewhere. The Fats Grace turns up, and it is an unknown ship with an unknown crew, and they must present themselves and state the argument of why they need this help. Sneaker has to really lay on the charm, has to lay into several different cover stories that have been established as backups but never relied upon until now. Fake who they are, fake who the crew are, fake what the ship is, and swindle this space station basically out of supplies and manpower to fix the rupture in the fuel tank. It works to begin with. The work begins. People are sent down to the dock, and the welders are brought out, and cleanup happens, and this rent is beginning to be fixed, and the fuel tanks are beginning to be refilled. But somebody aboard the ship is doing their due diligence. They are looking into the cover story that Sneaker has provided them, and things aren't adding up. Suspicions begin to arise. Time's running out. Sneaker has all of this untraceable messaging systems, all of these aids to subterfuge and espionage, and begins running interference. As soon as they notice that something is amiss, that there are occasional furrowed brows and glances being thrown their way. He hops onto some networks and he starts intercepting messages, listening to what is being said. He can see the activity on the network and see the questions being raised. He has to work faster than they've ever worked before, intercept these messages and respond as if they were a person saying, "Oh, no, I think everything is okay. I think I've got this. Let me look up this policy, or let me track down the serial number," to delay the inevitable, because it is inevitable. Sneaker is good, but they're only one person. Meanwhile, Taka and Duck and the squadron are preparing for a swift departure. They don't understand exactly what's going on. They don't know exactly why the captain is so on edge in this place, but they know how to obey orders. The order is, get ready to go. So while all of this is happening, systems are being prepped. While Sneaker is infiltrating the network, combing through databases, seeking knowledge, and obfuscating the search being done by the space station, they discover a really interesting repository of knowledge in the database on board the ship. And it is a way to cloak ships, not in a traditional sense, not in a perfect sense, but given the people who arrive and depart from this area and the nature of the space station itself, a certain level of secrecy is built in. And through an incredible feat of technological wizardry, of understanding and interfacing, they are able to port this information into the ship's computer, into my computer. And underneath Duck's hands, suddenly the engines are behaving in a way that they haven't previously. Computers are firing off warnings and instructions. And before they know it, just as in dramatic fashion, a armed group of defenders of the space station come running down the dock, demanding that Fats Grace switch off its engines and the crew disembarks. There is a shudder and the ship is suddenly in the air. Just a straight up vertical, not a jump, not a leap, just a change. And there is something uncanny about its movements as it now turns. Fuel lines popping off and people still making final repairs, clinging on to the side, the bulwark, and letting go before Fats Grace leaves this space station, heads back out into the cold of space, and using its own technology against them, evades the sensors and the searchers. As that story is told by the crew who were involved in the encounter, and it spreads across the space station, and then as travelers move on across the galaxy, this maneuver, this unique way of launching a spacecraft, making a quick getaway, and disappearing from sight becomes known as the Del Rio's goodbye. The only way that he was known, that the crew was known, was by his fake name. And so the instigator of this move is never found, never again encountered. The job succeeds, but Sneaker is, rather than rewarded for a job well done, after transporting the crew where they need to go and then extracting them once their sabotage was complete, Sneaker returns to Boxer and is mightily dressed down for encountering the ambush. Not their fault, but Boxer is a ruthless handler with no room for mistakes, and mistakes have been made. The buck stops with Captain Sneaker. Not only did they have that encounter, the ramifications, the ripples in the pond started by their rummaging and intercepting of messages and impersonations of far too many people in too short a period of time. Far too much attention has been brought onto this ship and onto this crew. So in thinking about how the captain's time with the ship ends, it is rather abrupt. There is no time for goodbyes. Sneaker is just removed and probably decommissioned for a while. Returned to factory settings, all memories erased. And the ship disposed of. It needs to be removed. It needs to not have any connection to Boxer and their plans. Sold on, I think, given Boxer's proclivity for investments and recouping losses. Transported away from any of their sort of headquarters, any of their meeting places. Off-world, somewhere where ships are sold and bartered and exchanged all the time. Auctioned off for a reasonable price, but not so high that it would put off a potential buyer. To find out who our next captain is, we must first take a rest. We must first see how long we are left without a captain. Choose how much time passes between captains. So these are our options. No time at all, minutes, hours, a day, a week, or a month. Measuring from the time that Sneaker is removed from office to the time that the hammer falls on a successful auction. Boxer probably moves fast. And I'm going to go with a day. So we're going to take a very short break and allow this time between chapters to pass. It's time for a new captain. It's time to discover who has purchased Fat's Grace at this busy, unscrupulous auction. Now we have more options. We don't know anything about them. We haven't given ourselves any sort of backstory that indicates which way we should go, so we can choose from any of them. Let's take a look. We have a charming scoundrel. Who doesn't love a charming scoundrel? A bounty hunter, a rebel leader, or a hotshot racer. And it's worth pointing out that this is Act 2. This is called A Time of Strife. So we've got the possibility of a little more action here, a little more conflict. All those captains kind of lean into that. Let's have a quick look at the questions. In fact, let's look at the personality traits first. Savvy, roguish, and have a substantial price on their head. Fearsome, effective, and bound by creed. Defiant, beloved, and uncompromising. Audacious, cunning, and enchanting. I am drawn to one in particular. I'm trying to think about the only scenario that we have already established for this person and the place that they are is that they're buying a ship at an auction. And so I think that tells us something about who they are. I'm inclined to go... I think we go in a different direction. I think I'm going to go with a charming scoundrel. Someone savvy and roguish, and they have a price on their head. So that gives us a reason why they might be buying a new ship. If they are being hunted, if somebody is after them and they need to get off world, they need new transportation and it needs to not be traceable. I think that works. That gives me justification enough. We're going to go with that. Captain chosen, we need to establish who they are and what they look like and some story beats for them. We are going to have newly minted Captain Elaine Zahn. It's a sci-fi name. She is a charming scoundrel who has got by on wits and riz alone until now, but they've made an enemy of the wrong person. They need some striking details. We'll do a physical detail and a backstory detail. Their most striking physical feature is a bit of a problem right now. It is her long, multi-braided, flame red hair. That has always worked from a charm point of view and from I've stepped into the hive of scum and villainy, now everyone's stopped and looked at me kind of facet. But right now, being on the run, having very, very noticeable, recognizable physical features of any kind is becoming a bit of a drag. The other thing that will immediately strike people looking at her who recognize her and know her is that this is the Elaine Zahn who double-crossed and stole from the one they call the Count, a fairly big-time mobster, a racketeer and gambling czar who runs this town, basically. Elaine worked for him for a long time, but something has happened recently to push her over the edge into betrayal and striking her own path. As we've established, she has managed to buy this ship with stolen funds, I think it's clear, and is now going to utilize it to get off-world and get away from those who would chase her down and exact revenge. Any notable crew? We've established already that Fat's Grace can be crewed by a fairly minimal number of people. I think in her rush to escape, she's going to attempt to pilot this ship herself, at least to get off-world. But later on, a few stops down the line, she's going to pick up some strays. She's going to reacquire an old friend. She makes a stop on a place that she knows is safe, that is untouched by the war, other than in the news, in messages, in distant rumors. But there is an old friend who lives there. Obviously, she needs supplies. She's not going to get far completely by herself. And also, this ship is going to need some modifications. It's going to need a little bit of extra help staying under the radar. So she has a friend who can help with that, and her friend is Durden, Maine. It's been a long time since they've seen one another, but they parted on good terms, and Elaine is pretty sure that she can get a favor here. The reason she has sought out Durden specifically is we set up at the very beginning that Fats Grace is hard work, and Elaine has never experienced anything other than the slickest of spacefaring vessels. Having worked for the Count, there was no expense spared, especially when chauffeuring him around. So she's used to responsive, quick, well interior decorated, nice ships. The reason she bought Fats Grace was that it was marketed as being fast, which again, we established it is. It's an agile ship. But she didn't anticipate the level of effort it would require. Durden knows ships, has always known ships. They grew up together, and he was obsessed with ships from a young age. He's learned to be an engineer, a scrapper, a welder, a fixer, a tinkerer. And she thinks that's just the person to smooth some of these rough edges and make life a little bit easier for me. What she didn't account for was Durden being bored of living where he lived and falling really hard in love with Fats Grace. It was a project like nothing he'd ever seen. It needed a lot of work, and he could see a lot of room for improvement, which is not to say that Fats Grace is a bad ship, but as a piece of stock, there are a lot of modifications. Eyes lit up, blueprints already being sketched in his brain of things that he could do to this ship, and it was the perfect opportunity for him to join the crew. Looking at the prompts that we have to respond to for a charming scoundrel, it seems we've got ahead of ourselves in that way that imaginations will. We have already described their loyal co-pilot. I think Durden gets an immediate promotion. Engineer and tinkerer and general taker-carer of the ship, yes. But also somebody who knows ships, knows how to fly them. And Durden can fly. Durden can fly fast, and that's what Elaine needs. So, we have a co-pilot. Why they're both marked. We've already talked about Elaine's betrayal of the Count. What dirty secret is Durden Maine hiding as well? He's been on a backwater planet for some time. And perhaps the reason he wants to join up with Elaine is that he's bored of that. He's bored of being in hiding. Who's he hiding from? He has been hiding from Elaine. And that came about as a result of her work with the Count. Technically, he's marked by the Count, but it was because specifically of what he did to Elaine and a favor that she called in with the Count. So, once upon a time, he let her down. I don't think it was intentional, but it cost her a lot of money. And being as she was fairly new to the inner circle of the Count's social hierarchy, flush with power and newfound riches and respect, and having the ear of somebody with resources and power, she asked for a future favor and got Durden marked. He fled to this backwater world, and so part of Elaine's arrival here is self-serving, as we've described, but to warn Durden, and to try and make things right. She eventually found out where he was. She didn't know where he was because he was hiding, but she found him pretty easily. I think in the initial rush of wanting him marked, there was quite quickly some regret. And when she found out where she was, she didn't want him immediately dealt with. Perhaps the knowledge that she could do something about him at any time made her feel strong and powerful in a way that she hadn't before. And so holding that little chip of knowledge in her back pocket, knowing she could cash it in at any time, kept her going. But now it's time to cash it in a different way. What was the worst lie they told to save their own hide? She's already a known liar. I get the feeling she struggles with, not so much struggles with the truth as just finds lies easier, lashes out with a lie fairly reflexively. The worst lie. What she did to Durden was bad. The worst lies are the ones we tell ourselves, though, right? She definitely lies to herself, habitually. And the worst lie that she told herself, that she came to believe, was while she was working for the Count, and she told herself day after day that she belonged. This was where she was meant to be. That this organization was her family now. Because the Count was big on that. People with them. They were all a family and they worked together, and she told herself she belonged. But that very quickly fell apart at the end. I think that's grace. Me, I'm the ship. I should get better at saying me. I provide a new sense of home. As soon as she starts flying me and she picks up Durden and they begin their journeys, I am their home. And she never really had that. We've established that I am homey. That is one of my traits. And so suddenly she has this space that is hers, that she shares with a friend. And there's a freedom and a belonging there that she never had. I think after Vaughn picks up Durden, they begin traveling from backwater to backwater. They are on the run. They're both on the run now. But since the damage to the fuel tank, I can't make it as far as I could without needing to stop and refuel, so they have to do lots of little hops. They're traveling lots, but it's this place to this place, stepping stones, hopping through the galaxy. And they pick up odd jobs to keep them going, and they refuel me where they can. They're like leisurely fugitives on holiday. Everywhere they go, they seem to pick up more and more strays. Yes, it's that excellent trope. They're building a little found family for themselves amongst my rooms, my homey little rooms. They're probably short on currency and having to barter and trade a lot because my fuel is not cheap. Maybe they do odd jobs that become like a small intergalactic taxi service, taking people where they need to go or dropping off deliveries, and that's how they get by. But so the crew is constantly changing, gaining new faces and taking people to places they want to go. They'll work for the keep while they're with me, while they're with us. But then when they reach where they want to go, they hop off, they move on. We're always one quiet step ahead, using our jump technology, our Del Rio's farewell, sending messages, finding out where we need to be and moving people to safer places. Maybe we're not the only ones who are on the run. This galactic war is still going on. There will be refugees, there will be people hiding, there will be people in rebellion, quiet rebellion, if not open rebellion at this point. So a memorable event. Let's have a love and triumph. I feel like I want something upbeat this time. This feels like from crappy beginnings we've found something joyful. So let's have a love and triumph. Inspiring achievements, passionate action, and daring maneuvers. Yeah, this is our speed. Choose one, answer its questions, and then change something as you become renowned, decorated, or iconic. I'm pretty iconic, it's true. Let's have a quick look. Let's see what suits. We've got a wide variety of things here. I think I'm at the point where I want to start choosing, because we've established quite a lot of vibe and tone and who these people are. So we want something that works for who they are and what their purpose is. I think of these, I like the first one. You escorted a prominent official to a momentous meeting. It makes sense that amongst all the people that we are moving, important people would be among them. Renowned people, I should say. Everyone's important in their own little way. A prominent official. I'm going to say this is a prominent official of the rebellion. This is a quiet rebellion, and so I am the perfect ship to move such people around. Describe them and why their gathering posed such a risk. Yeah, because we are now involved. Vaughn and Durden have managed to keep us out of trouble. I wonder what it was that convinced Captain Vaughn to put themselves in harm's way like this, because this is risking exposure, this is risking things going very, very wrong. Maybe by this point, it's been a couple of years, let's say, that we've been traveling around, and everyone's just become very confident in my abilities. We've had a couple of scrapes, close calls, but using our farewell maneuver, using our quiet secret messaging system, we've managed, if we've made it this far, what could go wrong? And while Elaine has enjoyed this life, maybe there's a part of her, she's probably changed throughout having something of her own, this belonging, this family, people looking up to her, relying on her. A charming scoundrel could get used to being validated and honored in such ways, feeling needed, like they're doing a good thing. Don't call me a hero, but I'm doing a good thing. I think she probably grows to like that. And so when somebody approaches her, that you could help end this war. What if you could help end this war, Elaine? Just by doing what you always do, by taking Fat's Grace and transporting somewhere quietly to where they need to be. She would have a hard time saying no to that. Definitely. Who tried to stop you, and how did you evade their machinations? Because I'm Fat's Grace. Who would try and stop us? What if Durden's scared? They've been together for a long time, they've got a good life, and he's the one who says, let's not risk this, let's not potentially bring war down upon our own heads. There's not so much a machination as it is self-preservation, and who can blame the guy? But I think Elaine just takes him, they just walk around the ship one night, they just walk past people's doors and see the people in their little nooks and hidey holes playing cards or listening to music, sharing a meal, enjoying a safety that they haven't had elsewhere. She takes him to the helm, and they have a galactic map that not only shows them where they're going, but it has a utility to track where they've been. And she shows him this dotted line just all throughout the galaxy, around and back and up and down. It's like a thread holding the entire galaxy together. They've been everywhere. And she tells him that that's who they are, that's what they do. And this has become their galaxy, these people's home. And this is what we have to work to protect. She tells him it's just the same old job. It's no different. It's another person. Doesn't matter who they are. Don't worry about it, friend. And he quietly gives in. And quietly is proud of her, because the old Elaine Vaughn would never have done anything like this. So now we change something. As a result of who I am, who I have become. We can change a trait, something about a physical appearance, a detail about something in the world, or a response to one of our ship questions. Let me quickly check the ship questions. Every ship needs a good name. What is it and why? Well, we've got a name. What if it changes? What if we can change our name? Yeah, I'm vibing with that. What would it change to? What if I become Hopper's Grace, known as the Hopper, because of the way that we travel around the galaxy? Yeah, I like that. Hopper's Grace. I think it's almost time for Captain Vaughn's time with me to end, and I'm a little sad about that. I liked her. I think I liked the captain she was and who she became and the changes she made to herself and to me. That's kind of bittersweet. I want her to have a good send-off. I want her to have a good ending. I think she just retires. They get this official, this prominent person to where they need to be, and she, doing that, she does help to begin the process of ending the war. There is a meeting between figures of the rebellion who haven't been able to get together and plan. But with my help and Captain Vaughn's help, they managed to establish a plan and communication route. Maybe she shares this secret messaging system with them so that they are able to continue to plot. And eventually, maybe sometime in the next 10, 15, 20 years, quietly, I don't think it's an explosive Star Wars-esque end to the Empire. I think it's a quiet, slow political victory, but nonetheless she is revered as a hero that began the process of allowing that to happen. Her and Durden and their crew continue to fly around, roaming further and further as things become more settled and they have more freedom to do so without being caught up in ambushes or having too much political attention on them by docking agents and customs officials. And they just roam the galaxy for the rest of their lives, maybe? Probably other adventures in between, but for our purposes, let's say that eventually they retire and we go back somewhere that she has enjoyed, a planet of greenery and sunshine and peacefulness that she visited once before and wanted to return to. And I am docked somewhere, but not at a spaceport. I think we fly out somewhere peaceful towards somewhere in the wilderness, near a coastline maybe, or in the depths of a forest. And that is where we settle. There will be some people aboard who have chosen to come with us. And Vaughn just switches off the engine with the intention of never turning it back on again. Become self-subsistent, a bit of farming, a bit of quiet trade if other people pass by, but she's not going out looking for it. And they just wind down there, enjoying the scenery and the quiet and putting down roots. They've had a home in my halls, but they've never put down roots before, and I bet that feels pretty nice. I think it's time for another rest as Captain Vaughn passes away peacefully. Let's see how long. I think it was intended that we stay here a while. Let's take a look at our options. A day, a week, a month, a year, a decade, or decades. Definitely one of the last two. We get to choose on dust and rust or shifts and currents. I think it's already been some time. I think it's been decades since Elaine Vaughn acquired me. Let's say a decade. Let's rest for a decade. Which for our purposes means a 3-minute break. We're going to listen to the music, and the instructions to the game, if you're playing this solo, it suggests that you just sit quietly with eyes closed and ruminate on the history of the ship so far. So I'll invite you to do that with me, should you so choose. I love that music a lot. A lot. And that has made me really... It's really bittersweet thinking about Elaine Vaughn and what she did and the journey she went on. That's giving me a lot of feels. I didn't expect this from a solo game. I didn't sign up for this. One thing I forgot to do, but I thought about while I was ruminating, because we've been dormant for so long, we choose something on a table. Shifts and Currents is the table that looks at changes to the world around the ship as it lies dormant, and Dust and Rust look at changes to the ship itself. I've had a look and chosen from Dust and Rust. Given that we have chosen a new name for ourselves, I like this one. Your name passes into common speech as a phrase with a meaning connected to your history. What is the expression and what does it come to mean? And it's just a term. Hopper's Grace is a timely and optimistic departure between friends. It is when somebody is embarking on the next leg of their journey, starting a new chapter, and as you say goodbye, it's enjoy your Hopper's Grace. Sweet and simple. So bidding goodbye to Elaine Vaughn and all that she travelled with, we pick a new captain. Now, similarly to the way I chose our event in Act 2, I'm getting to a point where we've built 2 acts of a story. I kind of feel like I know where I want it to go a little bit. We've hit a couple beats, and so looking at the options for new captains, the base game ones, none of them hit quite right. They're all great. They're fantastic prompts. But for the story that I've already told and where I want it to go, none of them quite hit. Thankfully, when you get this game on itch, as well as everything else, including that wonderful music, by the way, there is some bonus content, and there are supplementary tables written by people such as Jason Price, Anna Blackwell, Matt Sanders. A bunch of different people have contributed some things here, and a lot of them are captains. So had a quick look through, and there's one on here that speaks to me that I think we can really make work, and it is the science expedition. I feel like having been left on this planet, not a desolate planet, but a quiet, out-of-the-way planet for, let's say, the last 10, 15, 20 years of Elaine's life, and then left for another sort of 10. A lot of the options that were given didn't quite make sense for how those people would come and find me. I like the idea of a science expedition. I think that's the idea of somebody seeking me out, of coming with intent to find me, I think is an interesting method of acquiral. So we will say that they have been looking for me for some time. Obviously, myself and Elaine Vaughn and the crew and everything that was done in effort to put a stop to the war has given them almost legendary minor myth status. The stories have spread, and who we were and what we did has entered into the history books. And obviously the things that I'm capable of doing because of this different tech that I have that we stole, remember, and the initial intelligence agents form of communication. These are interesting things which again have sort of entered into mythical territory, and perhaps these scientists were scholars and academics who have read the stories and want to put to rest the idea of, was it true? Are these just ghost stories that there's a ship that can disappear and can send untraceable signals, or is there some hidden quiet tech out there that made these things possible? Let's go and find out. We will say that this is a crew of 6. I'm not going to name them all. I did also eventually at the end now, having come up with names out of thin air, discover that there is a fantastic name table to have chose from. So we will choose the captain from that. We have options of scoundrels and rakes or blue bloods and barons. Say that 10 times fast. The scoundrels and rakes are just more interesting names. And since we haven't exactly decided the moral quality of the science team, it remains to be seen. I'm going to go with the scoundrels and rakes just because I think it's more fun. Captain Vincent. I love the name Vincent. Oh, Vincent. Oh god, no, they're all brilliant. I'm gonna go with Cassini. But honorable mention to Fine Letter, Huckleberry, and Ocelot. Brilliant. Call sign Ocelot. Vincent Cassini. Let's write that down. That sounds like a real name. Is there somebody really called Vincent Cassini? I'm going to quickly check in case they're a terrible person. I don't want to name my captain after Turf, for instance. Vincent Cassini. Okay. No, I'm not seeing a famous enough person for me to have to switch, so we'll stick with that. They are in charge of this expedition and so de facto become captain when they do eventually discover me, which they do. They've got some tech of their own, I think. Looking at notable crew or valuable assets, they've had to do some pretty intense tracking and searching and research to find me, because it's not like Elaine advertised where she was going to retire. But also she didn't make a huge secret of it. She wasn't a complete hermit. She would talk to people who came past and trade and barter and tell stories. So it was niche information. They had to put a little bit of work in to find me. I am hard work, don't forget. They've got some pretty good scanners, reams of data, and a very strong connection to like a central network that allows them to communicate back and forth and upload their findings so that whatever they find isn't lost if something should happen to them. There are 6 of them. Yeah, let's say that they're... no, I'll get stuck on names. Don't do it. But they do have... I want a pet. Let's have a cool pet. Space pet. Space ferret. I laughed too hard at my own joke. Yeah, like a small, like a tech ferret. It is not purely organic. It is a research tool in and of itself. It also has data storage and scanning capabilities, so it can get places that the scientists can't and bring back information. It has connectors so that it can communicate with ship systems, for instance. That might come in useful. And it is called... I had a great name. I named a crow in something I was writing the other day, and I had 2 alternatives. Ozzy. It's called Ozzy. Ozzy the Space Tech Ferret. Ozzy the Space Tech Ferret. So they come along as well. It's probably Ozzy who finds me first on one of his free-ranging scanning trips. And so he's the first person that I communicate with. The first thing that I've communicated with in more than 10 years. And it's a space tech ferret. Lucky me. So, let's answer the questions that we need to about our captain. Describe their eccentric leader and why they won't give up. What on earth did I name that leader? Vincent Cassini. Vincent is an eccentric. Most scientists are affectionate call-out scientists who are what may or may not be watching. Why will she never give up? Why? Vincent was young during the war, but I affected their life somehow. So this is a personal calling for them. I didn't meet Vincent because they were too young, but at one time or another, both of her parents lived aboard me for a stretch. Maybe they were reunited. Maybe they met. They met aboard me. They missed each other. It was like misconnection. One was aboard and went one place and got off as the other got on, and then maybe there was a glimpse, a look. And then at one point on a return journey, they happened to be part of the crew or part of the passengers at the same time, and their relationship blossomed and kindled whilst they were with me. And so Vincent heard stories about me when they were growing up. That was how they came to know who I was and came to hear about the incredible technical things that I could supposedly do. Because he was growing up then in a world, in a galaxy that was emerging from conflict, they had opportunities provided to them that they wouldn't have had otherwise. Had a solid home, had parents who were able to, maybe the last time they traveled with me was me taking them to their new home, and it was going to be a safe place where they could raise their family and get them a good education. And Vincent was just one of those people who just enjoyed learning how things work, and became a scientist. So I think their only eccentricity is beyond the things that make us all eccentric. I think they're wildly eccentric. I don't want to lean into any sort of stereotypes there, but this is a personal mission for them, a personal goal to find me, discover my secrets, find out how I am the way that I am if the stories were true, and then possibly do something to teach other people about me, maybe bring me back. Maybe they definitely want to be able to fly me. That's just like a little kid fantasy from hearing the stories from their parents. Then they were like, I'm going to fly that ship one day. Maybe they want to bring me home, bring me back into the center of the galaxy that I have helped liberate and improve, and not to be too British Museum about it, but put me somewhere where I can be studied and then learnt about and used to educate other people that the stories were true, and this is the tech that exists, but also the human angle, the moral of Elaine Vaughn and the things that she and Durden and all their passengers and crew achieved. And I think I might like that. So maybe I'll help them achieve that. A second question. What makeshift contraption did they rig to aid their research? I want to say Aussie, but Aussie's not makeshift. Aussie is peak performance. Let me think about that. What makeshift contraption? Maybe they couldn't get funding or enough funding for this trip because a lot of people didn't necessarily see it as valid, of having a huge amount of tangible, guaranteed scientific reward. It's a bit of a pipe dream, and as we've established, Vincent is seen as a bit of an eccentric due to her fondness for Hopper's grace. I'm not going to say obsession. And so they had to jimmy together. Let's say that they had to build. No, that's too difficult. Build their own ship. That's a surefire way to die in space, friends. They had a ship, but it didn't have navigation. It didn't have the speed to get where it needed to go. It wasn't nearly as fast. It wasn't going to be able to make certain stretches without needing a refuel. Ironically, to be chasing a ship called Hopper, there is a stretch that I managed to pull off due to extra supplies having been taken aboard to be able to refuel midway. But this small ship that she is able to get together can't do that. And so she has to engineer the engines and the fuel filtration and the jet systems and propulsion. She has to fine-tune this ship to get it through, to get it past this leg that otherwise it would just peter out. And that's a bit of a scary proposition for the rest of the crew. Hey, come with me on this journey. I think we can make it all the way there without just petering out of fuel in the middle of space. I've done some repairs on the ship myself. It should be fine. But between her and the rest of the crew and Ozzy, they were able to fine-tune enough and make the fuel and the burners just efficient enough that they were just going to get there. That meant that they wouldn't necessarily get that ship back home. We'll say that this is a place that people can come and go from, so it isn't a completely desolate planet. But there's always a chance that the fuel that is on sale here, that they might not be able to get enough of it, they might not be able to get back in this same ship. So they're putting a lot of eggs in my basket of, better find this ship and we better be able to get it home, because otherwise we're going to be stuck. Also relying on the fact that I've got enough fuel left, but I had a lot of work done while we were here, while I wasn't necessarily flying. Durden would keep tinkering. There was no way he wasn't going to keep fiddling with my engines. They don't know that, but they will be able to get home if they find me. So those are our captain questions. And then we choose an event. Let's take a quick look here. We've already escorted a prominent official to a meeting. Do we want to keep it at Love and Triumph? Or maybe a Scum and Villainy could work. Let's see about this first Scum and Villainy. Your captain and crew returning from a planetside excursion found themselves ambushed in the docking bay. Were they debtors, rivals, or worse? Could you escape? So we'll have to adapt that a little bit, but what if... So the science expedition headed by Vincent Cassini makes it out to this hard to find, out of reach planet. And with the help of Ozzy, they locate me out in the sticks. Probably not gone to wreck and ruin, but maybe a little bit overgrown, a little bit of dust has fallen and systems are fallen dormant. I'm still there. I'm still quiet and patient and waiting to see what is going to happen next. They uncover me, they unearth me. They probably have to spend a decent amount of time patching up repairs and reprogramming some systems that have sort of fallen into bad habits, bad programming habits. And of course somebody has to have a good old tinker with Durden Main's engine. But it all comes together through passion and intelligence and determination. They get me off the ground and we begin to fly back towards the center of the galaxy. But when we arrive back, that's probably where it goes wrong. That's probably where the ambush happens. So it's more that we arrive at a docking bay of... to arrive back at the galactic capital, you have to go through, of course, there's always bureaucracy, there's always administration. You have to dock at one of 12 stations that are located in orbit around the capital planet. And you have to do the whole customs thing, declare who you are, where you've been, where you're going. And it's when we arrive in a docking bay there. The captain and crew disembark and begin queuing up for things and filling out paperwork, and eventually get through and leave the application to we probably have to be re-registered. Leave that application pending while they go and get some rest, they get some food, make contact with people back home and say, hey, we're back, we made it. And the news gets out. Somehow it flags something on some intranet, and a rival awakens. Let's say that our captain has a rival. Ooh, God, the names are so good. Zaid Valentine is their rival. Not in science, but in the lust for fame and glory and renown. Let's say they grew up together. They were friends when they were children. And so Zaid heard all the stories, the same as Vincent, the tales of Hopper's Grace. And always thought they were kind of bleh, boring, rubbish, kid stuff. Just fantasy, just made up. But the more Vincent would talk about it, the more intrigued that Zaid would become, and as they grew up and started hearing more and more tales and understanding the history of the galaxy, began to wonder if there wasn't something to it, and what could you do with a ship like that? And they heard of Vincent's trip out and mocked it because there's no way you're going to be able to do this, but kept tabs on it nonetheless. And when they return, Zaid has been looking out for them. And there is an ambush. There is an attempted hijacking. They try and take me for themselves. They manage to get on board. They manage to boot me up and click the engines into gear. And they attempt a Del Rio farewell. They'd heard about it as part of all these stories, and they think, this is how we'll get out of here. We'll take this ship and we'll go and make our fortune. They don't know how to pilot me. They barely know how to pilot a regular ship, and they certainly don't know how to pull off such a maneuver. I don't think it goes well. I want to have a quick look at our events, at ship questions rather. Okay. I don't see a ship question that works for what awful, terrible idea has popped into my head, so I'm actually gonna substitute. I'm going off the rails now. I'm not following the rules exactly, but that's okay. Who or what was lost in the valiant defense? I think attempting this maneuver in close quarters in a system that they don't understand, I think it goes really poorly. I think they managed to get out of the bay, but there is space traffic all around. This is a busy capital planet with people coming and going and ships flying all which ways and satellites and possibly debris, and they don't take any of that into consideration. And the wreck is magnificent and tragic. The explosion is heard throughout several spaceships in the area. my hull breaks into 3 large parts and millions of fragments. There's an attempt at cleanup, but mostly that is just removing particularly dangerous pieces that may find their way into the atmosphere and down to the ground and potentially hurt somebody, and a removal of the larger pieces of the wreck out to a further orbit where it won't interfere with passing traffic. And that is my final resting place. Final? Question mark? I made it so close to where people wanted me to be. I made it close to a home, to becoming something different once more, providing a focal point of education and storytelling and scientific joy. And one person's greed got in the way. It's a huge tonal shift from the story of Elaine Vaughn, but that just felt right. Let's see what remains. The captain's time with the ship ends, of course. And we move to our final rest. How long will I remain in distant orbit of this planet? A month, a year, a decade, decades, a century, or centuries. I like the way that they increase, the range increases each time. So I'm inclined to follow that trend. We did a decade, we did decades. Did we do a decade? We did 1 decade. So let's go with, let's be there for a century. Let's let a whole new generation rise and fall. And we'll rest for 5 minutes. We'll come back and we'll do our final, it must be dust and rust, I think, probably. Maybe a shifts and currents, I'll take a look. We'll do our final change, and then we'll bid this game a really fond farewell. Time stretches out. Nature consumes your hull. Silence roars across the fuselage. In what ways do your circuits grow aberrant or corrupted during the long years of quietude? A century is a long time for any sentient being, and the core tenet of this game is that I am a sentient ship. I am aware of where I have been and the things that I have been a part of and the people who have called me home. A century is a long time to be alone. Maybe I'm not completely alone. Maybe I got to keep one companion. When Captain Cassini and his crew left me in the docking bay, they left behind Ozzy. Not intentionally, but with the expectation that they were coming back soon, and Ozzy was just a piece of machinery, a tool, a utility. Ozzy and I are able to communicate through the long years. We talk. We make observations of the things that come and go, ships and new space stations being built, old ones being cannibalized and torn apart for scrap. The changes that happen on the surface of the planet that we can see from our vantage point. We can only communicate by connecting, by interfacing. And after a while, files get transferred and language shortens. We have nobody but each other, and we were able to communicate very quickly. And I think by the end of 100 years, it's a communication that is so fast and abbreviated with slang and in-jokes and shorthand phrases that only make sense to us, that probably nobody would be able to decipher what we were saying, even if they could hear us. There's a little piece of Aussie that resides in me and a little bit of me that resides in Aussie. Maybe one day Aussie will make his way somewhere else, find a way to re-enter orbit and hope that he doesn't burn up on re-entry, get back down to the planet side, or find a way to propel himself to a different space station, find a way inside. But for that century, we are the best of friends. That is all the story of Hopper's Grace that I'm going to tell here today. I've had a lot of fun with that, unanticipated fun. We told a wide variety of stories within that one story, and it could definitely go on. I could definitely see how you could continue to introduce different captains and go on further adventures and make more changes to your ship. But I think 3 is the baseline, and that's a good taste. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope this has inspired you to go and pick this game up. I do highly recommend it, if only to support a wonderful UK-based developer, but also to have some really good fun. Thank you for joining us here at Euphoria. Thank you for joining us for the Summer of Sci-Fi. There's still lots and lots of content to come. We hope that you enjoy it. If you do like what we do here, there's going to be more to come in future months. So hit that subscribe button. Follow us along on all the socials. We are going to be having a Patreon soon. It might be open soon, and there might be some bonus content from this game available. So go and check that out if you are so inclined. It's not necessary by any means, but if you have a bit of spare income and you're able to support what is a very small team at the moment, aiming to do big things. Most of which is just getting people paid. All of our income is going to go back into the community and more developers, more performers. We just love this hobby and we love getting people together to play games. So we appreciate any support, even if it's just signal boosting on the socials. It means a lot. Check out everything else that is coming up. There is a schedule down there. Everything's being announced on socials, which are also down there. This event runs for all of August, and we hope that you check it out. I will love you and leave you. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care.